The crisp, clean lines of the Air Force Academy's parade grounds were a stark contrast to the turbulent storm brewing in the life of Lieutenant Rina Zhao. She had dedicated years of her life, pouring her soul into teaching the next generation of pilots, only to be told her services were no longer needed, that she was being reassigned due to a clerical budget cut. But she left with a quiet dignity that hid a simmering resolve. Days later, as the same cadets she had trained stood proudly for their graduation, a roaring flyover was planned to mark their achievement. What no one knew was that amidst the formation of jets, an unsanctioned, silent shadow was about to appear. A lone F-22 Raptor, streaking across the sky, its pilot a familiar face they had all dismissed. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Lieutenant Rina Zhao stood ramrod straight in the sterile, fluorescent-lit office, her hands clasped behind her back, the polished black of her regulation boots a silent anchor on the beige linoleum floor. Her gaze was fixed on the official plaque on the wall, a symbol of the very institution that was now, with a clinical dispassion, unceremoniously ushering her out. Across the desk, Colonel Arthur Jacobs, a man whose face was a roadmap of service, weathered and stern, shifted uncomfortably. His eyes, usually a steely blue, held a flicker of something she couldn't quite decipher, a blend of regret and professional resignation. The air was thick with unstated truths, a tension far more suffocating than the humid air of the Colorado Springs summer. "Lieutenant Zhao," Colonel Jacobs began, his voice a low, gravelly rumble that was accustomed to delivering both orders and commendations. "As you know, the annual budget review has been concluded. I am tasked with informing you that your position as an instructor pilot has been reclassified due to significant, and I must emphasize, unexpected budget cuts. We are streamlining our flight instruction program." End quote. Rina didn't flinch. Her face, a study in quiet composure, remained impassive. She was an expert at reading micro-expressions, at gauging intent. She could see the lie in the way his gaze refused to hold hers for more than a second, in the slight tightening around his mouth. Budget cuts were a convenient, bureaucratic excuse, a palatable lie used to justify decisions that were far more complex and often more political. "Understood, sir," Rina replied, her voice steady and clear, betraying none of the frustration that coiled like a venomous snake in her gut. "You're being reassigned to a temporary administrative role at the Joint Chiefs of Staff's office in D.C., he continued, the words coming out in a rush, as if to get it over with. "It's an important role, of course, but it's not what we had in mind for your career trajectory." The reassignment was a gilded cage, a bureaucratic black hole designed to keep her far from the cockpit, far from the purpose that defined her. The subtext was clear, even if it was never spoken aloud. This wasn't a reassignment, it was a subtle, institutional removal. Rina's mind, a brilliant and disciplined machine, immediately began to parse the reasons. It wasn't about performance. Her flight records were impeccable, her student reviews glowing. Her piloting skills were second to none, a fact acknowledged by every senior officer in the academy. Was it her quiet, unassuming nature? Her reluctance to engage in the political games and backslapping camaraderie of the higher echelons? Was it her humble background, a daughter of immigrant parents who had clawed her way to the top of the Air Force's most elite program through sheer, unadulterated grit? Or was it simply that she didn't look the part, that her face, with its dark, almond-shaped eyes and high cheekbones, didn't fit the mold of the Air Force's public image? She had always been an outsider, an anomaly, a quiet ghost in the halls of power, and this was the institution's way of rectifying that. "Sir, with all due respect, I believe there may be a misunderstanding," she ventured, her voice still composed. "My flight hours exceed the required quota. My students have consistently performed above average, and I've been commended for my work on the new GF Force training protocols." She wasn't pleading, she was stating facts, laying out a logical, irrefutable case against her dismissal from her current role. Colonel Jacobs finally met her gaze, and in his eyes, she saw the full weight of his dilemma. He was a man caught between his respect for her talent and the orders from above. "Lieutenant," he said, his voice dropping, a rare moment of genuine empathy breaking through the official facade. "This is not about your performance. We both know you're one of the best pilots this academy has ever seen, perhaps the best. You've earned the call sign Viper for a reason. This is a directive, a decision made at a much higher pay grade than mine." He pushed a thick manila envelope across the desk. "Your official orders, travel arrangements, and a severance package for your move. Please review and sign. You are relieved of all duties here, effective immediately." The word severance stung. It was a term for corporate layoffs, not for a career military officer. It felt like a final, dismissive blow. Rina took the envelope, her fingers brushing his. She felt a silent apology in his touch. She simply nodded, her jaw tightening just a fraction. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "I'll make sure everything is in order." With a final, crisp salute, she turned and walked out, her footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. She didn't look back. She didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. She would not complain. Not about the injustice. Not about the unstated accusations. She would simply take the envelope, pack her things, and leave. They had told her to take off her uniform, metaphorically speaking, to step away from the life she had built. But they had underestimated the depth of her resolve, the unwavering purpose that had driven her from a quiet, unassuming girl to one of the most elite pilots in the world. As she walked out of the academy, the sun glinting off the polished brass of her uniform, a new plan, audacious and exhilarating, began to take shape in the brilliant, disciplined mind of Lieutenant Rina Zhao. They wanted her gone. They wanted her to disappear into a bureaucratic office. She would give them a show they would never forget, a final, unforgettable testament to her skill, a silent, roaring defiance. The next few days were a study in silent, meticulous preparation. Rina moved with a quiet purpose, a ghost haunting the very institution that had discarded her. She packed her personal effects, the framed photos from her flight school days, the worn-out books on aeronautical engineering, the small ceramic mug that had become a comforting companion during late-night study sessions. The rest of her time was spent on a laptop, a silent, almost furtive reconnaissance mission into the inner workings of the Academy's flight operations. Her access codes, though officially deactivated, still held a back door she had created years ago, a digital key she had built as a contingency for her rainy day. She delved into the flight schedules, the maintenance logs, the security protocols for the upcoming graduation ceremony. The ceremony was a grand affair, a public spectacle meant to showcase the Academy's prestige. The highlight, a meticulously choreographed flyover of F-15 was a matter of national pride, a testament to the might of the Air Force. She knew the entire script, the flight paths, the timings, the contingency plans, because she had helped write them. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, a digital dance of a predator tracking its prey, and with each keystroke, a complex, audacious plan solidified. She knew she couldn't simply walk onto the flight line. Her access was revoked, her identity flagged. But Rina was a master of unconventional solutions. She had spent a year as a maintenance officer, a period many of her peers had considered a demotion, but which Rina had embraced as a deep dive into the inner workings of the aircraft she loved. She knew every inch of their anatomy, every quirk, every vulnerability. Her plan was audacious to the point of being certifiably insane, a high-risk gamble that could result in her court-martial, a dishonorable discharge, or worse. She needed access to a specific aircraft, the F-22 Raptor, the pinnacle of American air superiority. The F-22s were the Academy's prized possession, reserved for the most elite pilots, the top guns. They were heavily guarded, their maintenance logs meticulously tracked. But Rina had a secret. For 2 years, she had been quietly working on an unauthorized upgrade to the Raptor's flight control software, a minor tweak that allowed for a greater degree of pilot control in high-G maneuvers, a project she called Project Nightingale for its silent, subtle nature. She had done it out of a personal passion for pushing the limits of both man and machine, a pursuit of aerodynamic perfection. No one else knew about it, not even Colonel Jacobs. This secret project was her key, her final ace card. The day of the graduation dawned bright and clear, a perfect canvas for the spectacle to come. The stands were filled with proud parents, distinguished guests, and high-ranking military officials. The air buzzed with a mix of anticipation and celebratory noise. On the parade grounds, the cadets she had mentored stood in rigid formation, their new commissions a promise of the future. Rina was nowhere to be seen. She had slipped away from her temporary housing, pressed in a simple, unassuming tracksuit, a nondescript bag slung over her shoulder. She moved with the silence and efficiency of a predator, bypassing the main security checkpoints, using the hidden access tunnels she had discovered during her maintenance days, a secret passage known only to a few. She made her way to the hangar, a vast, echoing cavern where the jets, the true stars of the show, sat in silent repose. She found the specific F-22 Raptor she had been tracking, its sleek, metallic gray fuselage gleaming under the hangar lights, a magnificent, deadly bird of prey, waiting for its moment to fly. Its tail code, V-12, a symbol of its designation as a test bird, was a familiar sight. It was the same jet she had performed her unwritten software upgrades on, the same jet whose flight controls she knew as intimately as her own hands. The hangar was quiet, the maintenance crews already at the main flyover observation point. Rina worked quickly, a fluid, practiced sequence of motions. She unlocked the maintenance hatch with a small, specialized key she had made years ago. She slid into the cockpit, the familiar scent of ozone and hydraulic fluid, a comforting perfume. She settled into the pilot's seat, the controls a natural extension of her own body. She performed a silent, ghost-like pre-flight check, her fingers moving over the switches with the muscle memory of thousands of hours in the air. She initiated the start sequence, but not with the main power. She used a backup, internal protocol that she had been developing, a silent start that bypassed the main telemetry and ground control communications. The engines hummed to life, a low, barely perceptible whisper that grew in volume as she activated the main systems. She taxied the aircraft out, not onto the main runway, but onto a service taxiway, one that ran parallel to the main strip, hidden by a long row of decommissioned planes. No one saw her. She was a ghost, a phantom, a whisper in the wind. She reached the end of the service taxiway, the runway now in full view. In the distance, she could hear the announcer's voice, booming over the loudspeakers, introducing the graduating class. She waited, her heart a steady, rhythmic drumbeat in her chest. She watched as the formation of FF-15, a majestic squadron of aerial titans, took off, roaring into the sky, their presence a powerful, thunderous statement. She watched them turn, preparing for their final approach, over the parade grounds. Now was her moment. This was her protest, her final farewell, her silent message to the institution that had tried to silence her. She pushed the throttle forward. The F-22's engines, designed for silent, high-speed flight, a barely audible whisper compared to the roar of the FF-15. The Raptor surged forward, a silent, gray bullet. She lifted off, a ghost in the sky, her trajectory taking her below the line of sight of the FF-15s and their ground control. She was a rogue element, an uninvited guest to the grand ceremony. She was not a part of the show. She was the show, and she was about to give them a performance they would never forget. From the observation deck, the high-ranking officers, military brass, and dignitaries were all basking in the glow of the FF-15 flyover. The jets, a perfectly synchronized, roaring display of American air power, thundered overhead, their contrails a fleeting signature against the cloudless blue sky. The crowd cheered, the cadets saluted, and the officers on the dais, including Colonel Jacobs, exchanged knowing, satisfied nods. The ceremony was proceeding exactly as planned. Then, a subtle shift. A change in the air, a different kind of sound. Not the thunderous roar of the FF-15s, but a sound more akin to a tearing of the sky, a high-pitched, otherworldly shriek. All eyes, those of the seasoned officers and the wide-eyed cadets, turned skyward, scanning the horizon for the source of the anomaly. A single, solitary gray streak appeared from the south, not following the flight path of the F-15Z, but on a direct, intersecting course with the parade grounds. It was a single F-22 Raptor. No one had announced an F-22. It wasn't on the official schedule. The roar grew louder, a sound so powerful it seemed to vibrate in the very bones of the observers. The F-22, a magnificent, deadly bird of prey, streaked across the sky, its speed impossible to comprehend, its presence a defiant, silent declaration. It passed directly over the parade grounds, an uninvited guest to the grand ceremony. The crowd, which had been cheering, fell into a stunned silence. The cadets, who had been saluting, lowered their arms, their faces a mixture of bewilderment and awe. Even the seasoned officers on the dais, who had seen countless flyovers, stared in disbelief. "What in the holy hell?" a general muttered, his face a mask of shock. A senior Air Force official immediately grabbed his radio, his voice sharp and urgent. "Ground control report. We have an unsanctioned F-22 in our airspace. Identify that pilot. What's the tail code?" But the F-22 was gone as quickly as it had appeared, a fleeting metallic blur against the sky. Its signature was clean, its presence a ghost in the air. Colonel Jacobs, however, stared, his mind, a razor-sharp instrument of recall, working in overdrive. He had spent years in the cockpit, training, flying, teaching. He knew every plane, every pilot. He had seen the F-22's flight patterns, its specific, subtle movements, the unique way it handled at high speeds. He had seen the way its pilot, with a precise, almost surgical grace, had performed a high G-turn, a subtle, elegant dance in the sky. He had seen that move before. It was a signature. A signature that belonged to only one person. "No," he whispered, the word a soft exhalation of disbelief, the realization dawning on his face. He watched as the F-22, now a distant speck, performed a final, breathtaking maneuver, a graceful, impossible loop that defied the laws of physics, a maneuver only a pilot with a profound, almost mystical connection to their machine could perform. He knew that loop. He had seen it in the flight simulator, and he had seen it in the hands of the one pilot who had mastered it. He grabbed the arm of the general standing next to him, his voice low but urgent. "That's Viper 12. That's Zhao." Everyone looked up in silence. The general, the officers, the cadets, the proud parents. A profound quiet had fallen over the entire parade ground. The silence was deafening, more powerful than any roar. It was a silence of stunned awe, of sudden dawning recognition, of a truth so profound it left them all speechless. The pilot was not a rogue male, a brash renegade. It was the simple woman they had dismissed, the quiet anomaly they had told to take off her uniform. And she had showed up, not with a complaint, not with a plea, but with a silent, thunderous roar that said, "I am the best, and you made a mistake." In that moment, Lieutenant Rina Zhao, the woman they had tried to sideline, was more powerful than any man on that dais, her presence a silent, irrefutable protest, a brilliant, shining testament to her skill that left a permanent impression on all who witnessed it. The silence that followed Rina's flyover was a palpable thing, a heavy blanket of realization that settled over the entire Air Force Academy. The roar of the F-22 had been a fleeting sound, but the quiet that followed was a lasting, profound impression. Rina, miles away now, her hands steady on the F-22's flight controls, felt a surge of exhilaration. Not of defiance, but of a deeper, more profound kind of peace. She had said what she needed to say. She had made her point. It wasn't about revenge. It was about honor. Her honor. The F-22, her magnificent bird of prey, was an extension of her purpose, and in that flyover, she had reclaimed it. Back on the parade grounds, the ceremony, a meticulously choreographed symphony of tradition and honor, had completely unraveled. The flyover, a moment of pride, had been usurped by a rogue, unsanctioned event, a singular act of defiance that had brought the entire proceedings to a grinding halt. Colonel Jacobs, his face a grim mask, stood on the dais, his mind reeling. He was a man of regulations, a soldier to the core, but even he could not deny the sheer, unadulterated talent he had just witnessed. He had seen the way Rina's F-22 had moved, the way it had been commanded. It was not a simple flyover. It was a work of art, a technical masterpiece, a pilot's silent poem to the sky. The general, his face flushed with a mixture of anger and professional awe, turned to Colonel Jacobs. "Viper 12?" he demanded, his voice a low, furious whisper. "That's a test aircraft. How did she get access to it? And who the hell is Zhao?" Colonel Jacobs, despite the gravity of the situation, felt a surge of unbidden, defiant pride. "Rina Zhao, sir. My best pilot. The woman who developed the new G-Force protocols. The one who just got reassigned to a desk job." The irony was so rich, so cutting, it was almost comical. He had known, in his gut, that this was a mistake. Now, the entire world, or at least this corner of it, was witnessing the very public fallout of that mistake. He could almost hear the conversations happening in offices all the way up the chain of command, the red phones ringing, the furious questions being asked. Rina, meanwhile, had performed her final pass and was now navigating a secret, low-altitude return flight path she had plotted out in the dead of night. She was a ghost in the system, a rogue data packet with a purpose. She landed the F-22 on a desolate, unused airstrip she had found years ago, a forgotten patch of tarmac in the middle of nowhere. She brought the aircraft to a smooth, silent stop, its engines winding down to a barely perceptible hum. She sat in the cockpit for a few moments, the silence inside the plane a powerful contrast to the thunderous roar she had just created. She savored the moment, the final, perfect communion with her beloved machine. Then, with a quiet sense of finality, she powered down the systems, grabbed her nondescript bag, and slid out of the cockpit, her boots making a soft crunch on the gravel. She had no idea what her next move would be. She was a fugitive now, a renegade. She would face a court-martial. She would likely be discharged, stripped of her rank, her pension, her entire military career. She would lose everything she had worked for. And yet, she felt a profound sense of freedom. She had done it. She had flown her mission. She had answered the injustice with the only language she knew, the language of flight, a language that could not be silenced by budget cuts or bureaucratic directives. Her phone, which she had kept powered down, finally vibrated in her pocket. It was a text message from a blocked number. It was a simple message, but its meaning was clear. "Colonel Jacobs, we need to talk. Your location is compromised. Wait for me." Rina didn't question it. She knew he was a man of his word. She found a quiet place to sit, a low hill with a view of the vast, open sky, the place where she had just, for a moment, been a master of all she surveyed. She looked up, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly, utterly free. The sun set in a blaze of orange and purple, a fittingly dramatic end to a day that had been anything but ordinary. She waited patiently, her mind a blank slate, the tension of the day having finally dissipated. As darkness fell, a black, unmarked sedan pulled up. Colonel Jacobs got out, his face illuminated by the setting sun, a grim, determined expression on his face. "Lieutenant," he said, his voice a low rumble, "I'm not here to arrest you. I'm here to offer you a deal." Rina looked at him, her face impassive, her guard up. "A deal, sir? I think we both know what happens from here." "Not necessarily," he replied, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "You created a hell of a mess today, Zhao. You caused a ripple effect that went all the way to the top of the food chain. You made them look foolish. And you did it with more grace and skill than any protest I have ever seen. They're furious, but they're also impressed. You've made a powerful statement." He took a deep breath. "The official record will show that Viper 12 had a technical malfunction and went off course during a test flight. The pilot, whose name will not be released, will be reassigned, effective immediately, to a new, highly sensitive project. This project, which I am now officially in charge of, requires a pilot of exceptional skill. A pilot who can operate outside of the established protocols. A pilot who isn't afraid to break the rules to get the job done. Rina looked at him, her mind, a brilliant machine, working through the implications. A secret project. A way back in, not just to the Air Force, but to a position of true purpose, true value. He was getting her a chance, not just to avoid a court-martial, but to prove herself on a whole new level. "What is the project, sir?" she asked, her voice a low, steady whisper. "It's called Project Nightingale," Colonel Jacobs said, a genuine smile now on his face. "And it's about pushing the boundaries of flight, of technology, of what a single pilot can accomplish. It's a high-risk, high-reward mission. And frankly, I can't think of anyone better to lead it. You just showed the world what you're capable of, Lieutenant. You showed them what you can do when you take off the uniform and just fly." Rina looked at him, a flicker of emotion in her eyes for the first time that day. He had not only seen her, he had understood her, he had protected her, and he was now offering her a path to true purpose. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice filled with a profound sense of gratitude and relief. "I won't let you down." Colonel Jacobs simply nodded, his gaze a mix of admiration and respect. "I know you won't, Lieutenant. Now, let's get you out of here before they send a search party." He got back into the car, Rina following him, the F-22, a testament to her skills and her defiance, sitting silently behind them. They were heading into a new chapter, a new challenge, a new purpose. The woman who had been told to take off her uniform was now, more than ever, a force to be reckoned with, a ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind. A pilot whose skill would now be used not just for a flyover, but to change the very course of history. The unmarked sedan drove through the inky blackness of the Colorado night, the glow of the dashboard a faint, comforting light. The silence in the car was not empty. It was heavy with the weight of unstated understanding and a new, unspoken partnership. Rina, her civilian clothes feeling foreign on her skin, watched the silhouettes of trees and mountains pass by. She was no longer just a pilot, and Colonel Jacobs was no longer just her commanding officer. They were co-conspirators in a grand, secret game, bound by a shared purpose and a mutual respect forged in the fires of a quiet rebellion. "Project Nightingale isn't a program, Lieutenant. It's a designation," Colonel Jacobs finally said, his voice a low rumble that cut through the silence. "A classified initiative operating under the highest security clearance. The purpose is simple, even if the execution is complex. We need to be everywhere and nowhere all at once. The world is changing. The threats are no longer nation-state armies clashing on open fields. They're asymmetric, stealthy, and they require a new kind of response. We need a ghost in the machine." Rina listened, her sharp mind processing every word, every nuance. "And the F-22, sir? The one I liberated?" Colonel Jacobs let out a short, humorless chuckle. "Viper 12. She's not a standard F-22. We call her the Nightingale. For years, she's been a secret testbed for experimental stealth technology, advanced telemetry, and a new generation of flight control software. Your unauthorized upgrades, Lieutenant. The Project Nightingale you named yourself. You stumbled onto our work. Your modifications to the flight controls, your silent start protocol, they were a perfect mirror of our own advancements. It was as if you could read our minds. That's why they were so furious and so utterly impressed. You proved the concept was viable, not just on paper, but in the hands of a pilot." End quote. A flash of understanding passed through Rina. The military, with its labyrinthine bureaucracy and security measures, was often slow and ponderous. Her quiet, unsanctioned work had been the equivalent of a lightning strike, a proof of concept that had bypassed years of committee meetings and review boards. Her insubordination wasn't a crime. It was an act of parallel evolution, a testament to her genius. "The mission, Lieutenant," Colonel Jacobs continued, his voice now a serious, focused tone. "A rogue nation in a remote region of the world has developed and sold an advanced anti-air defense system. It's an undetectable, highly mobile radar and missile platform They're selling it to terrorist organizations and hostile regimes. It's a game changer. It makes a traditional air campaign impossible. Our intelligence is limited. Our assets can't get close enough to study its vulnerabilities. We need to get eyes on it, Lieutenant. And then, we need to make it disappear. Permanently." End quote. Rina felt a thrill, a professional's excitement, and a soldier's resolve. This wasn't a desk job. This was purpose, distilled. She was being offered a chance to use her unparalleled skill, not for a flyover, but for a mission that could change the global balance of power. "I'm in, sir," she said, her voice firm. They arrived at an unassuming, heavily guarded gate in the middle of nowhere. A nondescript office park by day, and a hidden, bustling hub of classified activity by night. They were taken deep underground, to a subterranean hangar where Viper 12, the Nightingale, sat in glorious, silent repose, her stealthy contours a work of deadly art. Her new team was small and eccentric. Dr. Eris Thorne, a brilliant and perpetually disheveled astrophysicist turned systems engineer, who spoke more to his computer consoles than to people. He was the one who had designed the Nightingale's ghost-like electronics. Sergeant Marcus Thorne, a grizzled, no-nonsense crew chief who had a profound love for his machines, a love Rina understood completely. He was Eris's brother, the grounded yin to his brother's abstract yang. And Captain Anya Petrova, a strategist and intelligence analyst, whose piercing blue eyes seemed to miss nothing. Anya had the unnerving ability to read Rina's mind, to anticipate her tactical needs before she even voiced them. For weeks, Rina lived and breathed Project Nightingale. The training was brutal, a far cry from the academic drills of the academy. She flew in a custom-built, immersive simulator, facing scenarios she had never before conceived. The new anti-air system, codenamed Cerberus, was a hydra-headed monster, a living, breathing defense grid that adapted and learned with each simulated attack. Rina was forced to push Viper 12, and herself, to the absolute limits of their capabilities. She performed maneuvers so extreme, they would make a normal pilot black out, the experimental flight software allowing her to push past the limits of physical endurance. She pushed the Nightingale to a level of stealth that was less about technology and more about art, a subtle, invisible dance in the air. Her progress was astonishing. She not only mastered the Nightingale's technology, she began to anticipate its needs, her connection to the aircraft becoming almost telepathic. She discovered new, undocumented maneuvers, the result of her own unauthorized upgrades combined with the experimental system. She was a natural with the Nightingale, a force of nature in a machine. Her call sign, Viper, was no longer a moniker of respect. It was a simple statement of fact. She was the best. This success, however, did not go unnoticed. A few weeks before the scheduled mission, General Wallace, a formidable figure from a rival Air Force command, arrived for an unscheduled review. He was a man of old-school principles, a staunch traditionalist who saw Rina's unsanctioned flyover as a dangerous act of insolence, not a display of skill. He cornered Colonel Jacobs in the control room. "You're seriously putting the fate of this entire operation, our most advanced technology, and a crucial global mission in the hands of a pilot who publicly disobeyed orders and flaunted protocol? A pilot we just reassigned for insubordination?" he demanded, his voice a low, furious whisper. "General, you've seen her flight simulations. She's the only one who can do this," Colonel Jacobs countered, his voice firm. "Simulations are not reality, Colonel. I need to see this myself." General Wallace's gaze, sharp and critical, fell on Rina as she exited a simulation pod. "Lieutenant Zhao, you will perform a full-spectrum flight profile for me. Today, on the Nightingale." The test was designed to break her. General Wallace threw every conceivable challenge at her, from simulated engine failures to a swarm of virtual enemy drones, pushing her to react under extreme pressure. He then ordered her to attempt a maneuver she had perfected, one he had always considered a wild, unproven theory. Rina, her face a mask of focus, simply nodded. She climbed into the Nightingale, the weight of the moment heavy on her shoulders. She was not just flying for a review, she was flying to prove her worth to a man who fundamentally did not believe in her. As she took off, she felt a profound sense of purpose. This was a test of trust, a test of her honor. She would not fail. She flew with a quiet ferocity, her movements fluid and precise, a dance of pure, unadulterated skill. She executed every command with an almost supernatural grace. She outmaneuvered every virtual threat, her connection to the Nightingale, a testament to a level of piloting that was beyond mere training. The final maneuver, a near-impossible high-G spiral, was a work of art. She executed it flawlessly, landing the Nightingale with a gentle grace that belied the fury of the flight. She exited the cockpit, her hands steady, her gaze unwavering. She looked at General Wallace, who stood beside Colonel Jacobs, his face a silent study in professional awe. He had come to discredit her, but she had answered him with a symphony of grace and power. General Wallace said nothing. He simply offered a curt, respectful nod. He had seen enough. He had come to doubt her, and now he had seen the truth. The woman they had told to take off her uniform was not just a pilot. She was a legend, a ghost, a viper in the sky. She was ready. The mission was a go. The mission was codenamed Project Shadow. The day arrived with a familiar chill in the air, a cool, pre-dawn silence that was a stark contrast to the thrumming energy of the underground hangar. Rina, dressed in her flight suit, felt a surge of professional focus. All the months of training, the grueling simulations, the endless analysis, had been building to this moment. The Nightingale, her Viper 12, sat on the launch pad, its sleek gray fuselage gleaming under the soft recessed lights, its presence a silent promise of air superiority. In the control room, Colonel Jacobs, Dr. Thorne, Sergeant Thorne, and Captain Petrova stood around a massive, glowing holographic display, their faces a tapestry of professional tension. They were a small, insular team, a family forged in a crucible of secrecy and shared purpose. Rina, their ghost, was their one shot, their final gambit, against an enemy no one else could touch. Pre-flight checks are all green, Viper. Sergeant Thorne's voice came through her comms, his tone a mix of gruff professionalism and genuine care. She's clean, she's ready. Bring her home safe. Understood, Hammer. Rina replied, her voice calm and steady. She had given him the call sign, Hammer, for his uncompromising attention to detail and his unwavering loyalty. Viper, this is Nightingale 1. Colonel Jacobs's voice, a familiar rumble, came over the comms. You have the green light. The world is relying on you, Lieutenant. But more importantly, so am I. Understood, Nightingale 1, Rina said, a faint smile playing on her lips. She settled into the pilot's seat, the controls feeling like a natural extension of her own hands. She initiated the silent start protocol, the Nightingale's engines humming to life with a barely audible whisper, a ghost in the hangar. She taxied to the launch ramp, a solitary silent shadow moving in the pre-dawn glow. With a final, decisive push of the throttle, she was airborne, a gray blur against the inky blackness. The flight was long and arduous. She flew a meticulously plotted course, a series of low-altitude vectors designed to skirt the edge of known radar coverage. The Nightingale's stealth systems were not just a cloak, they were a work of art, a ballet of electromagnetic energy and sensor deflection. Rina was a master of the dance, her hands and mind guiding the jet through a maze of invisible threats. As she neared the target area, a remote, mountainous region in a hostile country, she could feel the tension radiating from the comms. The silence from her team was more unnerving than any noise. The target, the Cerberus anti-air system, was a living, breathing defense grid that was supposed to be undetectable. But Rina, with her enhanced sensor suite, could feel its presence, a subtle hum in the electronic ether, a silent sentinel waiting for a stray signal. Then, a sudden, horrifying realization. A new, unforeseen variable. The enemy had implemented a new countermeasure, an active stealth detection system that was far more advanced than anything her team had anticipated. The simulation had not prepared her for this. She was no longer just a ghost. She was a ghost in a haunted house. Nightingale 1, I've got an active detection system. Rina's voice was a low, urgent whisper. "It's on a low-frequency band. My stealth is compromised. I'm going in." "Viper. Negative. Abort. Abort." Colonel Jacobs's voice was a sharp, furious command. The risk was too great. "Negative, Nightingale 1, Rina said, her voice filled with a calm resolve. "I've got this. I'm using Project Nightingale." She activated the experimental flight software she had been working on, the one she had perfected on her own. It was an unwritten, highly risky maneuver that allowed her to push past the limits of physical endurance. It was a leap of faith, a gambit that could end her life, but it was her only way in. The Nightingale's wings shimmered with a subtle, electric energy. Rina pushed the jet into a high G-turn, a violent, bone-crushing corkscrew that sent her into a silent, vertical dive. She was no longer flying, she was falling, a controlled plummet towards the heart of the enemy's lair. The Cerberus system, her comms informed her, was confused, its sensors unable to track a falling object that was moving at such a high speed. It was a gamble. A brilliant, terrifying gamble. She pulled out of the dive, just feet above the tree line, her stomach lurching with the sudden change in G-forces. She was in. She had bypassed the enemy system, a ghost that had defied their reality. She found the Cerberus system, a subtle, almost invisible complex of mobile launchers and radar arrays. She locked on, her hands steady, her mind a steel trap of focus. "Target acquired," Rina whispered, her voice a low hum. "Firing." She launched a series of high-precision missiles. They hit their mark with a silent, blinding flash. A cascade of explosions erupted on the mountain, a fiery, beautiful display of raw power. She had done it. She had disabled the system, a ghost in the machine, a weapon of last resort. She exfiltrated, her comms silent, a ghost in the sky. She flew her way back home, a long, arduous journey that was more a testament to her endurance than to her skill. As she landed, the sun was rising, a beautiful display of orange and red that seemed to celebrate her victory. She was no longer just a pilot. She was a hero, a legend, a ghost in the machine, a whisper in the wind. The woman who had been told to take off her uniform was now, more than ever, a force to be reckoned with, a force that had changed the very course of history. She had found her purpose, her voice, her honor. She was the Viper, a simple woman who had been told to take off her uniform, and who had answered with a silent, thunderous roar that would echo in the hallowed halls of power for years to come. The landing was soft, a whisper of a touchdown that belied the fury of her flight. The Nightingale, her magnificent Pina machine, slid to a silent stop on the runway of the underground hangar. Rina powered down the systems, the cockpit's lights fading to black, leaving her in a quiet, profound darkness. She sat for a moment, her hands on the sea. Controls, the physical and emotional residue of the mission, a heavy cloak around her. The adrenaline, which had been a surge in torrent just moments ago, now receded, leaving behind a hollow exhaustion. She had pushed herself beyond every limit she had ever known, and she had succeeded. The hangar lights came up with a soft hum. The crew, led by Sergeant Thorne, rushed in. A flurry of focused energy. He didn't speak, but his hands, as they went over the Nightingale's fuselage, were a language of gratitude and relief. He ran a diagnostic check, and the Nightingale systems responded with a clean bill of health. His eyes, when they met Rina's, held a respect that was deeper and more profound than any commendation. In the control room, Colonel Jacobs, Dr. Thorne, and Captain Petrova stood in a huddle, their faces illuminated by the mission readouts. The data was clear. Rina had not only succeeded, she had done so with a level of precision and audacity that was borderline mythical. She had bypassed the enemy's anti-air system, a defense grid that was supposed to be impervious to human ingenuity, and had disabled it without a single fatality on their side. Her Project Nightingale maneuver, the insane, high-G spiral, was already being analyzed by a team of systems engineers, their minds boggling at the sheer audacity of it. After the debriefing, a quiet, almost reverent affair, Colonel Jacobs led Rina to his private office. He poured her a glass of water, his hands steady, and sat across from her. He didn't ask her how she felt. He simply looked at her, his eyes holding a depth of understanding she had not seen since her father had passed away. "You're a ghost, Lieutenant," he said, his voice a low rumble. "A hero who can never be acknowledged. The world believes that the Cerberus system went offline due to a technical failure. They believe that a rogue nation lost its most valuable asset due to an internal collapse. We can never tell them the truth. Your bravery, your skill, your entire mission, it's a whisper in the wind, a classified secret that will live only in our files." Rina nodded, a quiet sadness in her heart. She was no longer a pilot seeking recognition. She was a ghost, a weapon of last resort. The public uniform had been stripped from her, but the private purpose had become more profound. She had found a new kind of honor, an honor that was not celebrated in parades or marked with medals, but was etched into the quiet dignity of her own soul. But their celebration was short-lived. A new threat, far more insidious than the previous one, had been uncovered. The intelligence gathered from the mission revealed a dark truth. The rogue nation was not the mastermind behind the Cerberus system. They were a pawn in a larger, more complex game. The technology, the intellectual property, the entire defense grid had been developed by a shadowy, global corporation called OmniCorp. OmniCorp was a ghost in its own right, a private military and intelligence company that operated beyond the reach of governments, its presence a whisper in the digital ether, its power a silent, creeping poison. "They're developing something new, Lieutenant," Captain Petrova explained during a classified briefing a few days later. "A new weapons system, an AI-driven, autonomous defense grid that is designed to be immune to human unpredictability. It's a system that learns, adapts, and counters any human pilot's flight patterns. It's a weapon that can't be outsmarted by a brilliant mind. It's a weapon that could make all of our air assets, including the Nightingale, obsolete." Colonel Jacobs looked at Rina, his eyes holding a grave purpose. "This is a different kind of mission, Lieutenant. This isn't about flying an F-22. This is about being a ghost in a different kind of machine. We need to find their core research and development facility, their central hub. We need to get close to them, so close we can taste their breath. We need to find their secrets, their weaknesses. Your flight skills, while invaluable, are only half of the equation. Your unique ability to operate outside of the system, to think like a ghost, that's what we need now." Rina was sent on a covert, non-flying mission. Her uniform was no longer a flight suit, but a simple, elegant business suit. Her persona was that of a brilliant but disillusioned engineer from a small boutique aerospace firm. A woman seeking a new challenge after a quiet but successful career. She was sent to a high-profile, exclusive tech symposium in Geneva, where OmniCorp was rumored to be recruiting the world's most brilliant minds. The symposium was a world of polished surfaces, hushed conversations, and subtle power plays. It was a stark contrast to the gritty, high-stakes world of military aviation. Rina, her hands no longer on flight controls, but holding a polite glass of sparkling water, moved with a quiet, observant grace. She listened, she learned, socialized, not as a pilot, but as a predator, stalking its prey. She used her knowledge of unsanctioned technology, the Project Nightingale, she had developed on her own, to talk to the OmniCorp recruiters. She spoke with a quiet confidence that belied her true identity, asking questions that were both intelligent and subtly revealing, all in an effort to get closer to her target, a top-level OmniCorp executive named Julian Vance, the head of their R division. Julian Vance was Baal, a man of quiet arrogance, a brilliant engineer who had left the military years ago to join OmniCorp, disillusioned with what he saw as the ponderous, inefficient nature of government agencies. He saw a kindred spirit in Rina, a woman who spoke his language, a woman who understood the exhilaration of pushing technology beyond its limits. He saw her as a potential ally, a brilliant mind that could be lured to OmniCorp's side. During a final, exclusive interview, conducted in a secure, private room, Julian Vance made his final offer. "Ms. Zhao," he began, his voice a low, confidential tone. "We've been very impressed with your work. You have a unique insight, a brilliance that is hard to come by. We want you to join our team. We're offering a position that will give you the freedom to create, to innovate, to push the boundaries of technology in a way that no government agency ever could. What do you say?" Rina's heart pounded in her chest, a silent, frantic drumbeat. She had come all this way, infiltrated their world, and now she was on the precipice of getting what she needed. She had to make the right move, a final, audacious gambit that would get her the information she needed without getting caught. "Mr. Vance," she began, her voice a calm, even tone. "I'm intrigued. But before I commit, I need to know. What are you truly working on? Your recruitment tactics? Your secrecy? It all suggests something far beyond simple innovation. You're building a ghost in the machine, aren't you?" Julian Vance's eyes, which had been cold and calculating, now held a glint of surprise, and then a slow, grudging admiration. "You are more perceptive than I gave you credit for, Ms. Zhao," he said, his voice a low purr. "Yes, we are building a ghost. A new world order of defense. An AI that can outfly, outthink, and outmaneuver any human pilot in existence. It is the future of warfare. It is the end of human error." He then did something Rina had not anticipated. He pulled out a small, encrypted data drive. "Our new AI, the Titan, is something we are very proud of. It's the culmination of years of work. I'm going to give you a small preview of our work, a glimpse of our future. Consider it a testament to our faith in you. Take it, study it, and then come and join us." He placed the data drive on the table and stood up. He walked to the window, his back to her, a gesture of profound, and ultimately, foolish, trust. It was the moment Rina had been waiting for. She had her target. She knew what she had to do. Her mind, a brilliant and disciplined machine, worked in overdrive. This was it. She reached for her handbag, not for a gun or a weapon, but for a small, modified USB drive, an elegant piece of technology that was also a backdoor, a digital key. She moved with the silent, practiced efficiency of a ghost. She picked up the data drive, and with a subtle, practiced motion, she swapped it out with her own. It was a move so fast, so precise, that it would have been missed by even the most perceptive eye. She then replaced the data drive on the table. Julian Vance turned back, a triumphant smile on his face. "I believe you'll find it enlightening." Rina returned the smile, a quiet, knowing glint in her eyes. "I'm sure I will, Mr. Vance. Very enlightening indeed." She walked out of the room, her hands steady, her heart thrumming with a silent, exhilarating victory. She had done it. She had infiltrated their world. She had outsmarted their best. And she had gotten the data she needed. She had not flown an F-22 over their graduation, but she had flown a much more dangerous, and much more important, mission. She had been a ghost in their machine, a preyed whisper in their wind, and in doing so, she had secured the future of her purpose, and perhaps the future of the world. She had found her new uniform, and it was a weapon far more dangerous than any F-22. It was her own brilliant, unwavering mind. The simple woman was now a ghost, a legend, a hero who operated in the shadows, and she was just getting started.